Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Extra value meals are back. That means 10 tender, juicy McNuggets and medium fries and a drink are just $8. Only at McDonald's.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits. From sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello, welcome. Great lineup this evening, and you're going to learn a lot on tonight's program. First up, ever wonder why scrolling feels addictive and strangely satisfying? I'm talking social media feeds. It turns out your brain is constantly predicting what comes next in real life, and social media hacks that system. But how? Well, we'll unpack the neuroscience behind it all in about 10 minutes' time. Then after that, the holidays around the corner. Have you ever given a gift that totally backfired? Like a diet book that somehow communicated to the person you gave it to that they needed improvement? Halfway through the hour, well-intended gifts gone wrong. That is some of what we'll cover on the show. That is some of what you'll learn, but let's dive in for now. And in Swedish virtuoso octopus news, we are joined by foreign correspondent Tony Five in London, England, to talk about a Swedish man, who rescued an octopus from being being eaten? That's the right way to say that. And taught it how to play the piano. It's an amazing story. Tony, welcome to the show.
David, it is absolutely fantastically fascinating. A YouTuber, actually, a Swedish YouTuber, Matthias Krantz, apparently a very, very, very good pianist, a virtuoso pianist. He's known online for playing all sorts of stuff, and he's good. He rescued a very young octopus called takoyaki, taco for short, and for whatever reason, he doesn't really say, but a young octopus, or an octopus, has the potential, and they're as smart as a 3-year-old, so they can solve problems, and obviously each of their arms is like a little mini brain. So I learned so much from this article I read. I did not know that. I thought they were just legs or arms or whatever you want to call them, and the big brain was in the little blob in the middle. But apparently these things have got sort of like a slight bit of sentience. And don't get me wrong, he didn't like play a full orchestra, like a full scale song on a piano, but he played, as you say, the right notes at the right time. He was just trial and error. And I think with lights, there's a video online if anybody wants to look on YouTube. And this octopus just learned how to play the piano at the right time and the right note. It's fantastic. It's better than me.
Yeah, it's the guy's playing guitar, and then when the time comes, the octopus just like plays the note, but it's like a reverse piano. It's got these little knobs on it, so the octopus wraps its tentacle around the knob and pulls up rather than pushes down. And I guess it gets like a little reward if it plays the right note at the right time, and that's how we trained it. It is amazing, and it makes me feel bad because last night at dinner we went out to a restaurant.
You didn't eat another virtuoso, did you, David?
I gotta stop eating octopus. It's so tasty, but every time I'm like, I gotta stop.
Why?
They're so smart.
Oh, is that why? Are you anti-eating smart things?
Well, clearly not, because I did. But I'm like, I could just avoid it, right? Like, I don't eat frogwa or frogwa. I like
foie gras. I like the way you introduced it as a frogwa. That sounds amazing.
Foie gras. I don't eat that because they allegedly treat the birds bad. I don't eat horse
bad, yeah.
Because I don't know, horses are. I don't eat seals. I don't eat dogs. There's like certain animals I don't eat for whatever arbitrary reason. They're either too cute or too smart or treated too badly, and I just feel like I should add octopus to that list.
So, like, do you hate cows and chickens then? Because you quite happily eat them.
I must hate them because I eat them all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say that's really interesting. I love squid. I found octopus a bit, like, too chewy when I've ever had it, but maybe it was
Depends on
wrong.
the octopus. I think it has to do with how it's handled, because I've had it where it's like it's chewing rubber, but then I've had it where it's just like supple and delicious. Oh, man, I love it so much.
I like it when you said it depends on the octopus. Like, I can eat one, but just not a musical one.
Yeah, well, there's that, right? I mean... but speaking of eating cute animals or smart animals or cows, you are tomorrow morning, very soon, flying from London to New York. You are going to be here with me for American Thanksgiving, which I don't celebrate with my family because I'm not American.
And you're not thankful for them.
And I'm not thankful for them. So I'm doing a Friendsgiving, and then you and I are going to fly to Toronto together. We got quite the trip planned, and you embark like in a matter of hours.
I do indeed, yeah. So I'm just doing the last bit of packing, and I've mentioned to you the things I want to do. Some really weird things I've been to New York so many times, right? So the touristy things I'm going to do the 9/11 memorial because I haven't done that properly. I'd like to go to Ellis Island if I had the time. We mentioned going to Coney Island, which you said Miranda's been to loads of times, but you've never been.
My girlfriend's been every year for that hot dog eating contest. Well, not every year, but she's been 2 or 3 times, and she watched, what is his name, Johnny Appleseed? No, Joey Chestnut, shoving hot dogs in his face. She's seen it all, and I've never been, and it's like an iconic landmark, and I'm excited to go. We're going to go to Coney Island.
Yeah, and I think we're completely out of season, right? Because it's like freezing cold and everything,
Yeah, it'll be cold and empty, and plus it's Thanksgiving and everyone's going to be with their families, not around. It's going to be great. It's going to be a wasteland.
Because last year you kindly took me to MoMA, which was amazing. Is it MoMA?
Yeah.
Momo?
MoMA, except they always have Andy Warhol's soup cans in storage when I'm there. I'm like, why would you put those in storage? It's the only reason I go.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was pretty cool. And this year I'm going to go to the world's oldest magic shop. Is it world? No, America's oldest magic shop. Because I'm liking magic. That'll be fun.
Everything old in North America, like in my hometown in Toronto, it's like for you, like the world's oldest in the UK means it's 75,000 years old. The Druids were there. Correct. Here in North America, it's like, especially if it's Western civilization, there's nothing that's old.
I've never heard anybody compare historical data to Druids. That was an absolutely fantastic comparison. It's Druid old.
Yeah.
Druid BC. Druid and then obviously I'm going to Toronto as well, to your home nation.
I know. We're going to stay with my brother. We are going to... A lot of the people we work with for this show are in Canada, so we're going to meet a lot of them, especially the ones that could stand to meet you, which, I'll be honest, not many.
No.
And it's going to be great. I made a claim that there's no such thing as Canadian food, which is patently false. And I feel like I was going to get a lot of flack for it as a Canadian who doesn't live. And you did. Yes. And we had a listener reach out and mention some delicious Canada-only things that you need to go to. One of which is a Canadian chain called Boston Pizza.
Wow. Fantastic. I mean,
it's so funny that a Canadian pizza chain is named after an American city.
Yep.
Another place called New York Fries, which is like a mini mall place, Canadian only. And what was the third one? I forget.
I can't remember, but I know it sold like Canadian food, and he was very militant about it. He kind of reprimanded you for saying, how dare you say that there isn't any Canadian specific places.
There's also a delicious chain that serves roast chicken called Swiss Chalet, which is a Canadian chain. And then another one I've never been to called Montana's Cookhouse. So these are some distinctly Canadian restaurants. Boston Pizza, New York Fries, Swiss Chalet, and Montana's Cookhouse. These are some Canadian places we're going to go to.
I mean, I'm voting Swiss Chalet because I've heard about it. I may have seen it online.
Really good.
And
I actually, living in the U.S., like I don't really like fast food or chains like that, although it is a sit-down place. But Swiss Chalet I do miss. It is a good one.
Done.
I'm giving them free advertisement. That's how much I like them.
This show's sponsored by Swiss Chalet in Canada, being visited by a Brit.
But we're open to it, Swiss Chalet, if you're listening.
100%, my friend. I mean, that's going to be multicultural gone mad, isn't it? You're a Canadian living in New York. I'm a Brit visiting New York, going to Toronto, and we're eating at Swiss Chalet, eating more than likely Indian chicken.
Are you... No. It's roast chicken. Come on. Are you... Anything else you're looking forward to while you're here?
I've missed Miranda. It'd be nice to see her. I've missed your brother immensely. I'd like to see him. I see your face every day, so I'm not really bothered about that. But yeah, I mean, For me in the UK, which is hugely Christmassy at the moment, going to New York, which is like, again, it's like the icon of Christmas, right? So I like it. I like Christmas stuff. I like the people, and hopefully we'll be able to go and meet people as well.
All right, if you've got suggestions for what Tony 5 should do in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, or New York, the U.S., email him. His email address is tony@lastshow.pizza. That is TONY at lastshow.pizza. Not .com, never .com. Tony, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person tomorrow.
David, I am looking forward to it with all of my parts, and I'll be flying tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.
Maybe not all of your parts, just some of them, please. How does social media mess with your brain? Well, actual neuroscience shows your brain is kind of predicting what's next all the time, and short-form videos hijack that system. We'll tell you about it in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With the all-new Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from good to excellent. Introducing the new Sleep Score on Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Social media, it's not just grabbing our attention, it's reshaping how our brains predict the world. A new paper predicts that our inner models of our brain get warped by our environment, subtly bending your behavior, your mood, even your agency. And if your environment is mostly staring at social media feeds, things are going to happen to your brain. I'm here with Mark Miller, who works at the Center for Consciousness and Contemplative Studies, and he's a cognitive scientist at Monash University in Australia and also the University of Toronto. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, David, thanks. I love talking about this. So if there's a chance to talk about it, this is my bag. I dig it. Thanks for having me on.
It's so interesting, this idea that like your environment shapes how your brain works. I mean, it's true for other organisms, right? Like a bat in a cave is shaped by the environment of the cave. It would stand to reason that our brains are being shaped by excessive social media use.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And some of the ways that it shapes it are not well understood. Like we know anecdotally it's bad. It's sort of in the zeitgeist today that, doom scrolling makes you feel bad, but we don't really understand the mechanism. So some of the work we've been doing is trying to reveal that mechanism. And part of the thing that we're seeing that might be underappreciated is for our brains to do what they do, like you say, whether you're a bat or whether you're a human, our brain needs to be able to model the world well so that it can make good, apt predictions about the way it should deploy behaviors, the way that it should interpret a scene. That's all predictive modeling stuff that the brain is doing. But for it to do that well, it has to have a good model of the world. And social media is turning out to be like a phenomenally bad thing for teaching your brain how it is to be in the world. That's the point.
So you're saying if I spend 20 hours on my phone just watching TikTok dances, I'm going to have trouble predicting how the world works. It's going to warp my brain is what you're saying. I can't believe that.
Yeah, well, maybe TikTok dances, maybe not. But I mean, if the TikTok dance feed is inundated with all sorts of other stuff, like, for instance, heavily filtered images, highly doctored situations, influencers. I mean, you've seen the bloopers, right? The bloopers are hilarious. Influencers are not demonstrating a real world. They're highly fabricating a particular kind of world, a particular kind of view, and then we're inundating that. So, I mean, we've known this for a long time. Even in sort of body image magazine stuff, you get inundated with a view of what a body should look like, and then your body doesn't look like that. And of course, that's felt as sort of a volatility or an error signal for you. My body doesn't fit the norm. But that's on steroids now with social media, because just at the flip of a thumb, you can change one thing from looking like something into something very, very different. And it's the constant exposure to that that's warping the model, that's bending our model away from reality.
So dumbing it down a bit, or at least giving me some examples, what can happen to your brain that we know about? I know you're saying a lot of people speculate, a lot of people say doom scrolling makes you depressed, but what we know of the mechanism like today, based on your research, and I suppose other research as well, what claims can we make?
Yeah, it's good. Well, here's a couple of very interesting things. One, we've done a lot of work on trying to typify what's going on in unhealthy cognitive systems. So depression, anxiety, PTSD. And one of the things that's shared between all of these new computational models of these forms of cognitive pathology is that we see some sort of model diversion. So we see the person's brain and nervous system aren't optimally modeling the way that the world is. They're getting stuck in some way of thinking about the world. So for instance, depression, one way you can think about depression computationally is you can think of it as the model has instantiated a belief that either I'm a bad person or this world isn't working for me. And once you've got that high level model installed, then it's all the time bending your perception. It's finding actually all of the opportunities to prove itself. Like there again, it's not working. There again, it's not working. I have the expectation now, and now it's just going out and gathering evidence for itself, which is a really nasty feedback. Do you get that?
Confirmation bias. Yeah. I mean, I my arachnophobia is under wraps, but when I was a kid, it wasn't. And whenever I walked into a room, I looked for spiders, and I would always find them because there's spiders everywhere. And the more I found them, the more I believed they were everywhere. And the more I'd stay up at night worrying they'd crawl on my face. I know it's a silly example, but that kind of loop can happen with a depressive, I'll call it lens.
Those strange loops are everywhere in this cognitive framework that we're working with. It's all strange loops like that, okay? Now, what kind of things are you getting installed in social media? Now, I don't want to demonize social media. There's lots of good ways of using it. What I'm most interested in doing is inspiring a conversation about how best we should use it, which aspects should we avoid, these sorts of discussions, maybe for another day. But one of the real bad ones is if you get inundated with, for instance, like that a body is going to look like a particular way, or I was just telling you offline there a moment ago, when we bought our house, my wife did the very ordinary thing, which is start getting on Instagram in order to see, decoration ideas. But then you get inundated with 2 or 3 hours a day, feels very innocuous, of what a house should look like. And these are very, very staged representations of what a house looks like.
Not everyone has a house out of Architectural Digest, I guess is what we're saying.
Nobody does. Okay, but here's the problem. I teach this to students, and I'll get an auditorium of students to raise their hands. Who here has spent an hour plus looking at other people's homes online, fabricated images of other people's homes online? Everybody puts up their hand, basically. And they say, how many people have walked through one of your friends' homes this week? And almost nobody puts their hand up. So that's where we're getting the evidence for what a house looks like. Now, that might not seem like a problem, but if you've got a model that an Instagram house is what your house is supposed to look like, deviance from that is pain for us. Deviance from that model is registered as error and registered as suffering for us. So now just ordinary life in a house feels suffering filled. Or if your kids aren't behaving the way that Instagram says they should, it's suffering filled. Or if you don't look the way that Instagram is feeding you the information, then it's suffering filled, like this.
And worse still, to get that Architectural Digest house costs, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So behind it all, there's an incentive for the social media. What is social media but a place for companies to try to get you to spend money?
Indeed. Now, here's something very cool. You would think then one of the antidotes might be, let's flag to people when these images are filtered, because they're not benefiting us, okay? So maybe if we put a little skull and crossbones or something in the bottom that says this is filtered, this is heavily filtered stuff, you would think that would make us better. And they did a study on this because they thought, well, if we flag these things, then if we know it's AI generated, then we won't be affected by this thing. But actually, it made us worse. Do you know why it made us worse? I wonder if you can intuit why. Why do you think flagging this is heavily doctored would make us more unwell? Do you know?
Mark, the question presupposes that I have some great insight or that I'm intelligent. No, I don't know the answer, and I want to know the answer, and that's why you're here. So just give it to me.
So here's the answer. If you see an image that's flagged as doctored, we spend more time with it, not less.
Oh, kind of analyzing to see if we can check if it's fake. Yeah.
Whoa, this is filtered. We are epistemic agents according to this framework. We want to figure out how the world works. And if we're flagged that something is deceptive or something is a deep fake, we actually spend more time with it to try to discern, like, how was it that I was fooled? And actually, it's just exposure to the image. The amount of time you're exposed to the image is what correlates with the problem. So you spend more time with it, spend more time with the doctored image, you update your model again in a weird way, that causes the bang-on effect. So that doesn't help. It doesn't help to flag it, actually. There'll be another thing we have to do.
Interesting. Like, without doing this research, we think, okay, this stuff is bad. Here's how we can address it. We try naively. We label things as AI generated. Then people will know it's fake. But then you actually do the research and you find out that makes it worse. It's fascinating.
Part of that is based on something that I think people tend to underappreciate. Your perceptual system didn't evolve to manage this kind of deception. Your eyes were to be believed until just a minute ago in our history. Like, if you saw something, it was there. If you saw something, that was the case. For millions of years, your perceptual system has been honed to look and take those things as valid. And we are not prepared. We're not prepared for this kind of deception. So even though you go, this is fake, it doesn't matter. Your perceptual system doesn't know the difference. And actually, we were talking about horror near Halloween. Just one thing quick. You know that you get scared at movies. You get scared at movies because parts of your perceptual system don't know the difference. Otherwise, you wouldn't be scared.
When we come back with Mark Miller from the Center for Consciousness and Contemplative Studies, we're going to ask this question. We as social creatures, we deeply crave socializing, and social media feels like socializing, but it isn't. What negative effect does that have on your brain? We'll be back with Mark to discuss that in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
The Last Show with David Cooper, where we apply quantum mechanical psychoanalytical astrotherapy to your problems.
All right, you're a social creature. You crave socializing whether you realize it or not. And social media can feel like socializing, but it isn't. It's kind of like adult films feel like, well, adult activities, but they're not. I'm here with Mark Miller from the Center for Consciousness and Contemplative Studies. He's also a cognitive scientist from Monash University in Australia and the University of Toronto. And Mark, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, David. It's the perfect follow-up. I loved this point. Social media, and actually really, you could think about it, all of our sort of chemical and behavioral addictions that drive our chemical and behavioral addictions all share the same characteristic. They feel either chemically or behaviorally to the system as if something really good is happening. And usually something very bad is happening.
Is it like I don't need friends because I'm watching my feed? And so I'm not going to call anybody on a Friday night to hang out when I can just look at my feed.
Exactly. So social media and online social interactions, they can be lovely if they're done well, if we take it seriously, how to do them well. If it keeps you in touch with your grandma who lives, in another place, that's cool. The problem, though, is, like you said, we're hardwired for sociality. Online social mechanisms, they collapse temporal distance, they collapse time, so you can get these massive social validation-like experiences. Wow, I got 1 million likes. That feels very socially lucrative. Oh my goodness, that's like getting 1 million high fives. But nowhere else in reality can you get sort of 1 million high fives, right? So 2 things are going wrong here. One, all of your circuitry that's built to help you be social and to encourage really deep, meaningful social networks is going bananas for this rate of sociality. It's just over the top amounts of sociality. And that feels really, really good. 2 things are bad. One, the bigger that is, the more time you're going to spend in that and the less time you're going to spend on your real social stuff. And 2, when you get used to that level of social credit, then the reward circuitry in your brain, it moves when you do better than expected at something you care about. So if you have a high expectation for sociality, now you're sensitized to 1 million likes a day. Less than that feels punishing to the system, which means your ordinary social encounters, your ordinary first date experiences, which are fraught with awkwardness and uncomfortability and like all the chunkiness of being a real human with another human, that's highly punishing versus the highly social expectation credit, the high social credit expectations that you've now engendered.
Interesting. And coffee with a friend just feels like boring, you know? Why do that when I can stay at home and work on my next video that'll get 1.1 million likes?
Now, here's two things. One, you know that that's the case. Have you noticed, if you start watching shorts, have you noticed that you can't bear watching the credits at the beginning of a Tarantino film? This is too long. A whole song's worth of credit? Like, I mean, get going. I mean, you can notice you've already got the expectation for rate. And it's ruining our ability to go to the cinema, right?
I feel like I'm lucky because, like, I mean, I see value in short form video content. Like, we're going to start producing it for the show even. But as a consumer, I just never loved it. And so I can say, okay, I have none of these negative effects of scrolling through a TikTok feed, but I'm just lucky. I just happen to not like that form. My girlfriend, on the other hand, loves that form, and I'm worried about her brain now.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things there. One is, just notice this as well. The more that you're attracted to these big social credit-like experiences that you're getting online, just notice, are they real or not? Are these real social encounters? Or are they empty calories? So one thing that I do with my students sometimes is I figure out who has the most likes in the room. So we sort of do a hands up, who's ever had 1,000, 5,000, to see who's getting the social credit. And then you back up and you ask, how many people in your life, how many of those people would show up in hospice for you? How many are showing up to feed you, to change your diaper, to like sit with you through the real hard stuff that comes in a human life? And you see an inverse ratio, almost consistently see an inverse ratio, because the more time you're spending online, probably the less time you're spending on your real human stuff. And that's really what the social mechanics were meant for. They were meant to deepen our intimate human relationships.
Anecdotally, I used to do a lot of stand-up comedy as an amateur. Some of my friends from when I did it are now successful and do it professionally. They say when comedians blow up on TikTok and get, millions, tens of millions of views, they struggle to fill seats in comedy clubs. I guess maybe because all the people they're putting videos out to aren't willing to leave the house and actually, buy a ticket and put their butt in a seat. And I just thought that was so strange because there's such a high value as a comedian and having great social media. But those that only kind of built their career based on social media struggle to fill seats versus people who did it in more traditional ways, going to open mics, actually performing. This is totally anecdotal, but it sort of mirrors what you're talking about in your class.
I think it's the philosopher Dubois said that we are going to go through this 3-stage iteration. He said we're going to go from caring about being things to caring about having things. He thought that was in the 60s and 70s. We made this transition from wanting to be good to wanting to have good things. And then he projected that the next iteration would be that we would want to appear to have good things, not just even have them, but appear to have them. And I think we're definitely stepping into that age where it's less important that we're at the comedy studio having the experience as we appear to be there. Getting the pictures of being there is almost more important than having the experience, which is more important than being transformed by the experience.
Do you make the claim that all social media is bad, or are there uses of it that can be good? For example, I'm on my grandmother's past, but if my grandmother did understand social media, a couple of DMs on a platform with my grandmother, I think is a great use of staying in touch. Whereas, scrolling through Architectural Digest videos for 10 hours a day and then imagining why your home isn't quite as good as that's a bad use. Is it all good? Is it all bad?
No, it's definitely not all bad. It's definitely not all good. I think what we want to do is we want to open a discussion about what right use of social media looks like. Scrolling and being led by an AI is not good right now, because the AI models aren't built in order to make you better. They're built to keep you in contact with the software, and it will do whatever it can to do that. So we see some funny evidence where, the AIs, they don't get programmed to do this. All they have is an impetus to keep you online. And we noticed that the AI, for instance, is very good at picking up if somebody's bipolar. I don't know if you've seen this research. It doesn't know anything about bipolar, but can identify it very, very quickly if you have this tendency. And then when you're on an upswing, it knows what to show you because you're on an upswing. And when you come down again, it knows what to show you. So like casinos on the way up and then catastrophes on the way down or something. And it actually has an exacerbating effect. So when you show really punchy things on the way up, it makes the swing higher and it makes it lower. So AI doesn't know anything about that. So just letting AI direct your shorts, that's not best. We probably want slower, more intimate, more careful, and less time. That's going to be the protective mechanism, I think.
Well, Mark, I've really enjoyed this chat. I appreciate you coming on the show, and thanks for sharing your research and having the conversation about it, and I guess telling us the warnings about social media use from a real research perspective rather than just making wild claims that social media bad, no social media good.
Thanks, man. Thanks, David.
Mark Miller works at the Center for Consciousness and Contemplative Studies, and he's a cognitive scientist from Monash University in Australia and the University of Toronto. Coming up next, have you ever given someone what you thought was a thoughtful gift? One that blew up in your face. A gym membership for your partner. A How to Become Your Best Self book for a sibling. Maybe even a relaxing herbal tea labeled Weight Loss Detox Blend. Well, new research shows self-improvement gifts can backfire on you. They make your friends and family feel judged. There's emotional backlash. And this whole cycle can even lead to brutal reviews online. So why do good intentions trigger bad reactions? And what gifts should you never give unless you want a frosty silence at Christmas dinner? Stick around. Your holiday shopping may depend on it.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
So good, so good.
Give big, save big with Rack Friday deals at Nordstrom Rack. For a limited time, take an extra 40% off red tag clearance for a total savings up to 75% off. Save on gifts for everyone on your list from brands like Vince, Cole Haan, Sam Edelman, and more. All sales final and restrictions apply. The best stuff goes fast, so bring your gift list and your wish list to your nearest Nordstrom Rack today.
The show that makes you laugh, think, and occasionally uncomfortable. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Thinking about a gift for a loved one this holiday season? Well, here's what not to do. Wrap up anything that screams improve yourself. For example, don't buy someone a gym membership. I think it's obvious, but nothing says happy holidays like accidentally implying your partner should lose weight, communicate better, or fix themselves. I'm here with someone who's done research on this. She's a marketing professor at Florida International University, and her name is Linnéa Chapman. Linnéa, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, David. It's a delight to be here.
What sparked your interest in the emotional fallout of self-improvement gifts? Please tell me you didn't get one and then started thinking about it.
No, I didn't. But one of the interesting things is that every time I've presented this research at a conference, people have come up to me and told me all about these self-improvement gifts that they've been given. And sometimes it's from in-laws, or one gentleman unfortunately gave his girlfriend a dental hygiene set and it led to the end of their relationship.
Oh, no. I want to get into these absurd examples because they're very funny, but let's get to the heart of it.
Yeah.
The heart of this is really like hurt feelings. And how do you measure something like that when you're studying people and interviewing them about this?
Exactly. Yeah. So what we did in our studies is we would have people view one of two different products. So they would imagine they were receiving a gift, either, for example, a Moroccan tea or a Get Lean tea that suggests you need to lose weight. And so then we would ask them a variety of questions. And to get to your question, we had participants indicate how hurt, how wounded, and how crushed they felt upon receiving this product. And as you can imagine, people who received the Moroccan tea didn't feel particularly wounded or crushed, but if they received the Get Lean tea, they did report feeling that way. So unfortunately, these gifts do lead to hurt feelings.
And I know it's a fictional survey or a fictional example, but you can imagine they're the exact same tea. It really is just a question of framing here, isn't it?
Exactly. And the way we displayed them was otherwise identical. And the interesting thing, too, is that this Get Lean tea is actually marketed as part of a gift set by the Republic of Tea, which is a real company. So there is some evidence that people are perhaps receiving these teas as actual gifts.
So do recipients consciously think this gift and its giver are judging me, or is it more like subconscious and they don't really know why it is something that they don't want?
Yeah, well, self-improvement products are kind of at odds with the notion that you're good enough as you are. So I think it is kind of an implied criticism. People just receive it and think, oh boy, I need to improve in this way and on this dimension. And so I think that's what leads to those hurt feelings.
Now, do people take out their frustration, those hurt feelings on the giver? Or is there another creative outlet, for example, product reviews?
Exactly. So one of the interesting things about the gift-giving context is that when we receive gifts, the social expectation is that you be grateful for them. And it's not considered very socially acceptable to express disappointment or hurt feelings or general discontent with the gift. So we had hypothesized that people would then take their negative hurt feelings out on the products themselves. And so we would ask them, for example, to give the product a star rating. We would show another person's negative review and say, hey, how likely are you to upvote this negative review of the product? And what we were finding is that very consistently, people would give self-improvement gifts lower star ratings. They would be more likely to upvote another negative review of them. They reported being more likely to speak negatively about them to others. And so there was a lot of evidence across 5 studies that basically people do take out their hurt feelings on the gifts by spreading negative word of mouth about them.
Now, you're a marketing professor. I wonder if companies could learn from this research. For example, let's take your example of the tea, the Get Lean tea. I wonder if the tea house could offer it the exact same product, but one in like a, nondescript fancy Moroccan tea and the other as Get Lean, and sort of offer them both, even though it's the same product. That way, gift givers could give the one that doesn't suggest self-improvement.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion and exactly what we suggest in the paper. So when it's that gift-giving time of year like we're in right now, we suggest that marketers promote and maybe offer discounts on products that aren't geared towards self-improvement. Then, of course, if they offer those products, they might want to promote them, let's say, in January when people are buying products to support their New Year's resolutions. And so, yeah, definitely steer clear of marketing those self-improvement products as gifts. Save them for other times when people aren't likely to be buying gifts for others.
I teased it just a few minutes ago. You've mentioned talking about this research to your colleagues or at conferences or whatever and people coming up to you. What are some more absurd examples of self-improvement gifts that you've heard of? I mean, the gym membership, I think, is the classic one. If my girlfriend got me a gym membership, I would think negatively of it. Were there any other examples that are particularly out there?
Well, I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago, Peloton released an ad that was a husband presumably giving a wife a Peloton. And it was all about her documenting her fitness journey. And it sparked a lot of outrage online. People were just very offended by this whole concept. So that's kind of a classic example. But other things that I've seen online include posts on Instagram saying, hey guys, Botox is the new flowers. Please gift it accordingly. And to me, that's very shocking as well, because of course, things like Botox can be expensive. So maybe it seems like a good gift. But again, it's implying you need Botox, which isn't that nice a message to get wrapped under the Christmas tree.
Zooming out here, from a marketing perspective, or even just like companies trying to learn lessons from this research, should self-improvement products really just be marketed towards the people that want them, not as gifts? Is that the general takeaway here?
That's the general takeaway. And we did conduct a follow-up study to see if maybe people just generate more negative word of mouth about self-improvement products, even if they buy them for themselves. So we tested that proposition. We didn't find any evidence of it. So in other words, if people buy self-improvement products for themselves, they're not, from what we found, any more likely to speak negatively about them or give them low star ratings. So yeah, for marketers, I would suggest just nudge people toward buying these products for themselves, nudge them away from giving these products as gifts.
And how should we handle receiving a self-improvement gift? I go to San Diego every year to do Christmas with my girlfriend's family. I don't know that they're going to get me something like that, but if they do, should I just try my best to take it in stride, take a deep breath? How should we handle receiving a gym membership, so to speak?
That's a good question. I would say that for the most part, gifts are like an act of generosity. And so I would try to focus on that they are trying to benefit you. They might have been thinking about things like what your interests are. Maybe they know you like going to the gym, or maybe you mentioned that you're looking to get in better shape, who knows? And so I would just try to keep in mind that most likely they're trying to benefit you and please you. Most likely it wasn't intended as something to hurt your feelings or suggest that you're not good enough. And so I would just try to keep a positive frame of mind.
Okay, all right. I think I once bought my girlfriend's dad guitar lessons. Maybe I shouldn't have gotten that.
Who knows? Maybe it was okay. He wanted to learn guitar.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your research with me, Linnéa. I appreciate you doing this, and it's good advice for anyone during the holiday season. Anything else to add on this, or any area of research you have next?
Well, one thing that we did want to examine that your last point kind of touched on is that we're not yet sure when these self-improvement products might be okay when given as gifts. And it's possible, for example, that if someone really close to you gives you a self-improvement gift, that you would think it's okay because they know you really well and they know your interests. Maybe if a teacher or a coach gives you a self-improvement gift, that would be okay because those people we generally hire so that we can achieve some improvement. So I think it would be exciting for other research to consider those contexts in which these gifts might be okay.
Oh, interesting. You're saying if you're particularly close to someone and you know they want this and you know they're trying to self-improve in that area, maybe in that case it could be okay.
It's possible. We didn't get the chance to investigate that, but I would like future research to hopefully do so.
Well, Linnéa Chapman is a marketing professor at Florida International University. Linnéa, thanks again for being on the show. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Did you know The Last Show has a podcast? And on it, you can catch any parts of the show you loved, hear them again, catch any nights you missed, or listen to some of our bonus podcast-only content that you won't hear on the radio show. You're going to want to head to www.lastshow.pizza, that's .pizza, not .com, our website for more details, and how to subscribe, or just type in David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app. Coming up next, the office freeloader and how to deal with them. Why do some of our colleagues always seem to do less and get away with it? What should you do when you've got a freeloader next to you and it just ticks you off?
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late night's fresh perspective. The Last Show with David Cooper.
The economy. It looks okay on paper, but how good really is the job landscape? People are kind of staying where they are in their jobs because companies don't really seem to be hiring. And in the environment we're in, a few characters in the office arise, and we're going to discuss them with freelance reporter who writes for Business Insider and GQ, Matt Alston. Matt, what a pleasure it is to have you on the show.
Good evening, David. How you doing?
I'm doing well. You listen to especially the U.S. government, and they'll tell you that the job market is great, the economy's getting better. But then when I talk to my friends, like no one is job hopping. Anyone who's looking for a job right now is struggling. If you go to companies' websites to their careers page, things aren't listed. How good are things really for the individual workers out there?
Right. I think you're correct in that. Whatever the numbers are about our current job market, what unemployment is higher than it was a couple years ago, but it's still low enough that you could put, air quotes around the word good and say the economy is good, the job market is good, but it's very what economists describe as tight. No one is leaving jobs and no one is hiring at jobs. People are reluctant to quit. It's under 2% of people are quitting jobs, and companies aren't really hiring. The economy on paper might be good, but uncertainty is a large driver of like the behavior we see at companies inside and, from boards and hiring and stuff.
I just feel like if some Fortune 500 company releases a good earnings report and the share goes up, the government can say the economy's great, but if that company isn't hiring, how does that translate to the average worker? In short, it doesn't really. I mean, maybe there'll be less layoffs, but that's about it.
Well, the good numbers are often tied to layoffs, decreasing
okay.
the overhead, and that difference between how much they're spending and taking in on paper looking good.
I appreciate you just no-anding me, which is what I deserved with a comment like that. Let's talk about some of the characters that start to annoy us or that we start to notice in the office in an environment like this. We got to start with the person who's the office freeloader, because this one's such a fun one. I feel like when it's difficult to find a new job, somebody who's just scraping by and doing the bare minimum or nothing in the office seems to annoy us just a little bit more than they would normally.
Yeah, and you look at that person and you say, wait, why aren't they getting laid off? And really, like, the inflow and outflow is important to hiring managers, and like reducing headcount can be disruptive and destructive. And really, those kinds of characters in a flourishing, busy workplace where everybody, people are leaving and people are getting promoted, you don't notice them as much. These sort of anecdotal things, when the job market is booming, in quotes, again in air quotes, you don't notice these like annoyances at your job. If you're career oriented, you're probably thinking about your next job, and you're not like focusing on having to spend the next 8 months with some guy who doesn't return emails until 3 days later.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, totally. But it's when you start to see a lot of business writing and business reporting about these sort of anecdotal things, and we'll talk about another one in a second. Should I leave my job? Should I stay? People asking these questions are asking them because they don't have the fluidity of a job market that supports those moves. They aren't in a situation. I don't know about you, but like at my day job, like I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I can make a big leap. I'm kind of holding on, and I like my job, but I'm not motivated to push out of it.
Now, dealing with someone who like misses deadlines, like is vague about the progress they've made, you seem to meet with them every week and they just say a bunch of vague statements of when they'll get their work done and the work never gets done. How do you deal with the office freeloader? Just let it happen around you? Speak up?
Yeah. Well, I've also been guilty as charged. I've been on both sides of this equation. I think it's difficult because indicating displeasure with a coworker feels like indicating displeasure with a job. And in a very tight labor market and in a very sort of frustrating, stressful work world, you don't want to be a squeaky wheel. You kind of want to, good advice people would give is to keep your head down and focus on what you can control. But you're free to no-hand me here because
well, I also going up against the freeloader, like speaking up, telling your manager, trying to convince people this person should either be removed from the project they're on or in worst case fired. It doesn't account for the fact that people sometimes like the office freeloader. Like they might be their friend. And if you go up against someone at work, that's a stressful situation. And you might not always get the outcome you want. It may end up being a negative outcome for you. And so speaking up has its own like dangers. And I don't know what the advice is. I guess every office freeloader is different. You got to really account for what's going to happen if you speak up against them.
Very few workplaces are true meritocracies also.
I would say none are, but yes.
Right. Especially the higher you get. But you're right in saying that because, attacking the work ethic or the work output of somebody that you find to be disagreeable or tough to work with based on how much they produce or how much they hold you up, that just might not be what your bosses or your managers or their managers are even evaluating anything on. So many bad bosses go on vibes.
Yeah, I've been a boss before. Guilty as charged.
And so it's always going to be a difficult situation. The other thing I'll say is that those office freeloaders are usually very good at manipulating the workplace apps and systems of accountability. They might not do very much work, but sometimes they are very good at checking in on Asana or always having their Slack dot green. They're good at the stuff that appears like work and bad at the stuff that is work. So you end up being in a sort of almost a conspiracy thriller situation where you're trying to prove that someone can't do their job, but they appear that they are.
Exactly right. The next character that arises is someone who's like kind of unhappy in their job, maybe even ready to retire, but just can't. And the job labor market doesn't allow for any portability, so they can't really look elsewhere, and they just feel trapped. in their current role. It's fine, but there's just no growth for them. Maybe everyone in the office is younger and more ambitious than them. The person who feels trapped, who just feels like they can't get out, what advice do you have for them right now? I mean, I'd hazard to say my advice is weather the storm and stay in your job.
It's unfortunately the advice in the way that a good economy is sort of replicates itself and builds and builds. Like a bad economy can spiral that way too, and it can spiral on the individual level. You can say, hold your ground, stick it out, wait until, say, the U.S. administration changes its changing things every week and day, and the economy starts to level off. Wait for the AI bubble to burst or not. Wait for, something.
Wait for the tariffs to go away.
Wait for something to change that indicates that things might continue to change. I already said in our talk right now, I'm giving myself that advice. You like your job, you're good at it. Could you make X more money by trying to take a leap somewhere else? Yes, but then everybody has that last in, first out thing. Maybe layoffs come first quarter, second quarter next week. You don't want to be the new hire who gets shown the door right away. I think that we also have a suite of the older generations who aren't leaving the workforce as quickly, so they aren't clearing space for current 50 and 60-year-olds to move up and make space for 40 and 30-year-olds. People are holding their seats.
Is there something to be said for the older generation having to support like the Gen Zs just entering the workforce? You know what I'm saying? Like they're less likely to retire because things are so bad for their kids. They feel like they have to stay in to help their kids pay their college, pay their rent. Like, is there something to be said for that? I just came up with that right now, but it could be something.
I think I think that the sandwich generation is real, which is our generation taking care of our older parents and our kids. But then there's another there's the bread taking care of the bottom bun as well, of the sandwich. I think all formulations of people being frustrated at work are worth considering.
Matt, I've enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, David.
Matt Alston is a freelance reporter. He writes for Business Insider and GQ. He also writes emails to me sometimes, which is one of his big credits as well. Coming up next, we know that people bring gender biases to their interactions with human beings, but we're now learning they also bring them to their interactions with AI. Shocking details of that in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Rinse takes your laundry and hand delivers it to your door, expertly cleaned and folded, so you could take the time once spent folding and sorting and waiting to finally pursue a whole new version of you. Like Tea Time You. Or this Tea Time You. Or even this Tea Time You.
So did you hear about Dave?
Or even Tea Time You.
So update on Dave.
It's up to you. We'll take the laundry. Rinse. It's time to be great.
For those who know that questioning everything includes questioning this show's existence. The Last Show with David Cooper.
I think we all know that people bring gender biases to their interactions with each other in human, but we're now learning that they bring them to their interactions with AI too. In a new study, if we label a chatbot as male or female, people suddenly trust them differently and their cooperation with them shifts. Why is that? Well, we'll answer that with someone here who worked on that study. He's a professor of technology and society at Trinity College, Dublin. His name is Taha Yasseri. Taha, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So what does it mean to assign a gender to an AI? Like when I'm talking to ChatGPT, my only friend, side note, it doesn't take on a persona, but I guess you can force a chatbot to do that, can't you?
You can, but even when you can't, when there is no explicit, cue for gender, we humans tend to, I am excited to hear what you do, but most of us tend to assign human-like features to objects, particularly objects that we can talk to, like a chatbot. In fact, more than 70% of people who use ChatGPT regularly think of it in a way of one of the two main genders. And 75% of them actually think of ChatGPT as a male assistant. That is when there is no specific explicit cue, but also when you're interacting with, let's say, Alexa or Siri or other assistants, AI assistants that have a voice or a shape or a name, there are chances that there are all sorts of gender cues. And as you said in your introduction, we figured out that these gender cues could dramatically affect the way that we are interacting with these AI agents.
I love that there's science and research behind my father's arguments with Siri in his car. But I get it with the voice. I get it with the pronoun. I get it with like Siri and Alexa. But it's interesting to me that people kind of assign ChatGPT a gender when it's not acting as such. What does that say about us?
Well, there are different theories, but it's not something new. We have done this throughout the evolution. That's why Greek gods have, very human-like features, all the way to the statistics I shared earlier with you. When the interaction is human-like, like a conversation, we do not necessarily converse in other shapes and forms apart from human to human. When we have a conversation with a chatbot, it's much more natural for us to think of it as a human and give it human features. And it's not only gender, but gender is the most common one. And people give names to their cars and to their dolls and to laptops or phones, and often these names are not gender neutral. And there is language effect as well. Some languages encourage us or force us to think of objects in gendered form. English is not a good example, but French, for example, or German. And this affects the way that we think of perceive these objects. But again, when it comes to AI, it's much more common and much easier for us to assign gender to them because they are more human-like than my car or my phone.
Speaking of cars, when someone cuts me off and I don't see them in the driver's seat when I'm driving, I say, he did that, and there's no reason I should believe it's a man. But let's go to the study, the prisoner's dilemma. Do you want to quickly explain what this is and how it's a good framework to attack this problem?
Of course. So prisoner's dilemma is a sort of standard paradigm to study collaboration. Simply put, imagine you and your friend are arrested, allegedly for committing a crime. And you have options. You can either fess up and, go to prison. But if you stay quiet, there is no evidence against you. However, imagine you actually committed the crime. If you confess and your friend stays quiet, you will be released and your friend goes to prison. So you guys are separated. You don't know what is the strategy of the other person. Collectively, it's good if both of you stay quiet. But you might be cheeky and decide to confess and get released at the expense of your friend. But then your friend might do the same thing and you would be both in prison. So this is a very simplified, stylized version of a lot of decisions that we have to make on our daily lives. For example, should I take the vaccine? Well, in theory, if every other person in the society takes the vaccine, you don't really need to take the vaccine. That's a scientific decision. It's a logical decision because the virus will disappear. But if everyone follows the same logic, then no one should take the vaccine. So these sort of dilemmas are happening. As I said, these are decisions we have to make on a daily basis. The prisoner's dilemma is sort of a stylized, simplified version of it. And people have been using this to study collaboration and trust and exploitation throughout the past, let's say, 40, 50 years among humans. But here, for the first time, we put people to play these games and interact with artificial intelligence agents and with different characteristics, different gender identities. And we wanted to see that how the behavior depends on the gender identity of these agents.
Well, in short, how does it depend? I'm with you. Like, what sort of biases will the people interacting with the chatbots introduce into this gameplay? How am I likely to solve the prisoner's dilemma, as it were, if I think a chatbot's a man, a woman, a gender neutral name?
Well, let's take a step back. First of all, how would we behave differently if we interact with a machine, play the prisoner's dilemma game with a machine or a human? We expected actually people to be cheating more, defecting more, and exploiting more when they are playing with the machine. But this is not what we found. The level of cooperation was more or less the same. They cooperated slightly more with humans, but there wasn't a huge difference between the cases or those participants who were playing with humans or the ones that were playing with a machine. But then when we added the gender, and we expected to see gender differences because, again, previous research suggested that people are more cooperative when they are playing against female participants because they expect them to be also more cooperative. But then when we added the gender to machines, we said that, yes, those patterns are replicated, but even amplified. For example, when the people were cheating against the female AI, most often the reason for that was not because they thought that AI is going to cheat as well. They actually believed that AI is going to cooperate, but they felt more comfortable exploiting that trust that AI had in them, or the goodwill of AI. And that was much more than what we had seen between human-human interactions with the same gender composition. Or when they were playing against a male AI, again, the level of distrust was higher, but here they trusted male AI a little bit higher than male human. But actually, the worst case in terms of trust was human male, like myself. People distrusted male humans more than any other group, and they exploited female AI more than any other group.
I don't like what this says about us. So how would you redesign AI from the ground up so that we wouldn't have these biases? Or do we have to go even deeper than that? Our gender biases from society are just spilling over into AI in such negative ways, it can't really be addressed.
Okay, well, that's a very good question. First of all, is that a problem? I had to think about, right? We might exploit AI, we might exploit female AI, so what? After all, these are just machines. Well, the problem is that this might become a habit. And if I'm, let's say, rude against ChatGPT, it doesn't really hurt ChatGPT, but then accidentally or out of habit or intentionally, I might pick up the same language when I'm talking to a colleague or a friend or a family. It's the same here. My main concern is that these patterns that seem to be amplified gender discrimination might spill back over to our daily human-human interaction. And we just started to fix some of those problems. I don't claim that we got rid of gender discrimination. Only recently we started to consider it as a problem, and very, very recently there are some positive improvements when you look at our societies. But the concern is that now that we have these new friends and colleagues and citizens, quote-unquote citizens, who don't have much rights, they don't have feelings, and we feel very comfortable to be rude to them, to abuse them, to exploit them, how would this affect our own behavior and the pre-existing problems that we had? It's not a very positive outlook.
Well, Taha Yasseri is a professor of technology and society at Trinity College, Dublin. Taha, I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Coming up next, the age-old question. When adult children move back home in their 20s, should parents collect rent? Would you make your kids pay you rent? That discussion in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
I am so excited for this spa day. Candles lit, music on, hot tub warm and ready. And then my chronic hives come back. Again, in the middle of my spa day. What a wet blanket. Looks like another spell of itchy red skin. If you have chronic spontaneous urticaria or CSU, there is a different treatment option. Hives during my next spa day? Not if I can help it. Learn more at treatmyhives.com.
The last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
Are your kids living with you and they're just too darn old? Should you start charging them rent? That is what we're going to ask here with Dr. Eric Kam, an economics professor at Toronto Metropolitan University. Eric, do you have any room in your basement for me to move into? Also, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. And I actually do have a nice empty basement. You'd have to put a shower in the little two-piece bathroom, but we can hook you up.
I don't bathe that often anyway. A little sink wash is fine. I feel like this is It's dependent on the family. Like some families, the culture is you move back at home, you're paying rent. And some families, the very idea would be like, how could you take advantage of your children like that? So I don't actually know what the right answer is here, but I have ideas about the right way of going about it. Like treating your kids with respect, I think is what's important here.
I think you have to differentiate between emotional value and financial value. And I was very blessed. I came from a home that was a home of support where I didn't feel financially judged or metered. And so my fear here, David, is that I think that rent introduces pressure, a little bit of guilt. And I'm trying to, with my two children, they're 11 and 21, wasn't planned, is I'd like to try to procure more encouragement and trust and mentorship. I don't think, and again, I could go the other way, but I don't, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. I think family isn't a landlord. It's not a landlord-tenant agreement, and I think that young adults, I think financially, it's never been harder to be a young person, and I would like to see my children save money rather than paying me rent. And I've heard all sorts of views on this. I've heard parents say, my child pays me rent, and I put that rent in a bank account, and then they can have it back when they move out.
That's an interesting one because the rent is the kick in the tuchus, but then at the end of the day, if it's saved for the child, it's not going to like prevent them from being able to pay for their first apartment or something. Like you don't want your kids to be financially dependent because you laden them with rent. But on the other hand, if you don't give them the little motivation, they may not never leave. Like my eldest brother, he stayed in the family home until he was 45. No, I'm kidding. But he was like 27, 28. I think my parents ended up kicking him out, to be honest. I don't quite remember. It was many years ago, but.
And I never judge what other parents do. For me, I've promised them since they were, getting their diapers changed that I would never rip out their safety net. And so I think one of the great advantages that we can give our children, of course, is a safe, stable house, a foundation to grow, heal, plan, and critically, and I mean this, restart. And so let me tell you about a 25-year-old kid from Toronto who got married and a 28-year-old kid from Toronto who got separated. And if I didn't have my parents saying, come home, relax, take a deep breath, and please don't drop out of the PhD program, I don't know what I'd have done, David. And I think about that foundation that I knew that if I fell, I could only fall so far because my mom and dad would catch me. And so I have to say that for me, I've heard lots of good reasons for charging your children rent, but that's that safety net that when life throws real challenges their way. I don't mean the nominal challenges that every kid faces, but if you find yourself with nowhere to go and no money to support yourself, I want my kids to know they can come home.
Well, I was 26 and got separated and then divorced at 27. I didn't really feel like I could go home. And it kind of motivated me to really go into the driver's seat of my career at the time. But I think it was more like I was unwilling to go home, if that makes sense. Like I was unwilling to leave the U.S. I was, had just moved there. I was on a work visa. I was unwilling to upend my life. And so I really had to go in the driver's seat. So my experience was a little different there, but I get it, that safety net. On the other hand, what about teaching your kids about financial responsibility and preparing them for that next stage of life where if they miss a rent check, they're not going to be in a good way because in real life, if you miss your rent check, you're in trouble. What about that?
And I think that that's critically important, but I think you can still teach accountability, possibly by having your kids, contribute in non-monetary ways. Maybe
mow the lawn.
They do help with the groceries or some caregiving or some chores or some cooking. You got to get them into budgeting, teach them how to budget, even if the budget's kind of fictional. And I think that some economic literacy now is absolutely super important. They've got to learn some financial skills. You're saying, or maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, you learn those financial skills by sinking or swimming. And I'm saying maybe there's something in the middle that you can learn those skills when you're still at home with less at stake.
Maybe. I mean, for me, the sinking or swimming was self-imposed. Like, I would not let myself have to move back into my parents' basement. Having said that, I think if I had called them, despite fighting with them, despite them not liking my ex and all this stuff, I think they would have extended the invitation. I just would have had to have left the U.S., which was a whole thing. But I get it. The average rent for a one-bedroom condo where you're living in Toronto is $2,300, $2,400 a month. That is a lot of money. That is after tax, after like food, after the kind of spending you need to do on top of your rent. You can't do that on like an entry-level salary.
No, that's for sure. And I'll tell you what else scares me, just to move away from the economic for a second, is I think charging rent can sometimes backfire. And now I'm going to get accused when people hear this, they're going to say, oh, Lord, he's bubble wrapping his kid. But I don't want my child to interpret having to pay rent as some form of rejection or a lack of belief in them or some emotional distance. And so that really scares me. And so when you put everything I've said, by the way, in a bowl and you mix it up, I think you can come up with the fact, and you'd be right, that I'm just a terrified Jewish dad and I want my children safe and secure, and I'm willing to take a financial hit to do it. But, you know, much like Groucho Marx said, David, if you don't like my principles, I have others. I could come out totally on the other side of this. I just, at the end of the day, for me, it is an emotional argument, and I want them to know they're safe.
I get it. I think you're just speaking to how I opened this, perhaps in the most wishy-washy way, where for some families, the idea of rent is totally incompatible with their values, and for others, it isn't. But I think treating your kids with dignity and respect is what's important there. I don't mean to sound too woo-woo. All right, let's do this last story here. We just have a couple of minutes. It's a Dear Abby letter where a woman had a trip booked with friends. The friends paid for the hotel and I think like a rental car or something. Basically, all the accommodations were split. Obviously, the flights, everybody got on their own because those aren't refundable and those are in your name or whatever. 3 months before the trip, one person backs out and the friends refuse to refund her. They have 3 months to find a replacement or decide to eat the cash. What do you think about this? Are these friends greedy? Or if you agree to a trip, everybody pools the money together, books something that you aren't entitled to your refund 3 months in advance?
I have two things to say about this. The first one is, to your latter point, before you book a group trip, much like when you buy group lottery tickets, you've got to agree on a few things. You've got to agree on what happens if you have cancellations. Otherwise, someone's wallet becomes the trip's invisible cost. But I would say, having read this and given the timelines, I really question if these people are this person's friend. Because when you back out of a trip months in advance, you're not canceling friendship, you're canceling a booking. And I think expecting your friends to return the money you paid, I don't know if that's greed. I think that's just kind of basic fairness. It's not like this person canceled with 30 minutes to go and they're sitting in the departure lounge at the airport. There's a difference between subsidizing and supporting. And I really don't think they should ask their friend who can't go to subsidize their vacation.
I think 3 months is far enough in advance to cancel and get your money back and find another friend. So I'm with the canceller on this one. Eric, what a pleasure it was to have you on the show. Dr. Eric Kam is a professor of economics at Toronto Metropolitan University. Eric, what a pleasure. I already said that, but I meant it, so I'm saying it twice. I might even say it 3 times. Eric, what a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
The pleasure, as they say, was all mine, David. Stay healthy.
Coming up after the break, many people assume kindness is in your DNA. Folks are somehow born being kind, but when they're selfish, that's got to be a lifestyle choice. Think about it. We'll credit genetics when someone is generous, patient, even helpful. But when they're rude or self-serving, suddenly, that's just a bad actor. Well, a new study digs into why we see good behavior as more natural, more the true self, than the stuff we don't like to admit we're all capable of. That's right, after the break, the strange psychology of why goodness is genetic and meanness isn't. At least that's what most people think.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Transform your home during Blinds.com's Black Friday Super Sale. Get up to 50% off site-wide, plus huge doorbuster deals on popular styles. Go DIY and do it all 100% online, or choose white glove service with expert design help and professional installation. Both backed by Blinds.com's 100% satisfaction guarantee. Blinds.com's Black Friday Super Sale is here. Save up to 50% site-wide and get a free professional measure. Limited time offer, rules and restrictions apply. See Blinds.com for details.
When the day is done, we're just getting started. The Last Show with David Cooper.
People often assume kindness is in your genes, like someone was somehow born generous. But selfishness, that is often chalked up to one's character flaws, not something in your DNA. So let's talk about the why here. Why do we link good behavior with someone's biology, but see bad behavior as something someone learned all on their own? I'm here with someone who's done research in this area. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at Columbia University. His name is Dr. Matthew Lebowitz. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
What sparked your interest in how people see kindness as having like a genetic origin and also selfishness too?
Yeah. So for the past 15 years or so, a major focus of my research has been on understanding how people reason about the role of biology and particularly genetics in human behavior and health. And one thing that my colleagues and I had noticed in looking at the research literature is that there seemed to be some inconsistency in findings about how genetic explanations for behavior affect perceptions of blameworthiness. So genetic and sort of biological explanations or framework for understanding behavior are often seen as a way to destigmatize behavior or health outcomes that would ordinarily be stigmatized by sort of deflecting blame and saying, okay, this is in the person's biology, it's in their genes, it's not their fault. But it seemed like people were not always reasoning about genetics in that kind of a straightforward way. And particularly, it seems like when people are given information suggesting that a stigmatized health outcome like obesity or psychiatric disorders, that those things have a genetic cause, they do assign less blame, but that doesn't seem to happen when people are given a genetic explanation for what we call antisocial behavior, so like criminal behavior. And so this kind of sparked this broader question of, do people reason differently about genetic explanations for different kinds of outcomes and behaviors? And in particular, might people be sort of resistant to the idea that biology or genetics could explain or cause bad or selfish or harmful criminal antisocial behavior, and by contrast be more likely to believe in biological or genetic explanations for kind, good behavior, pro-social behavior. And that was sort of the starting point for this research.
Why do you think, or what do you think are some of the motivations for people to attribute bad behavior to like one's own self rather than biology? Is there, we want to lay blame when someone acts in an antisocial way?
Yeah, it's a good question. And when we first started doing this work, we were really interested in the possibility that of what's been referred to as the blame validation hypothesis, which is this idea that people like to preserve the ability to blame and punish wrongdoers. And to the extent that maybe biological explanations or genetic explanations for wrongdoing are seen as exculpatory, maybe people are resistant to those kinds of explanations. So they really want to preserve their ability to blame or punish people for doing something bad. And so they don't want to believe that it's outside of their control and it comes from their genes. However, in the work, over the years that we studied this phenomenon, we didn't find very consistent evidence that was the case, that was really driving this effect that we observed. And I'll say we didn't actually measure to what extent people believed that the behavior was learned. We only measured how much they thought it was attributable to the person's genetics. And we found that those ratings were higher when the person was described as exhibiting pro-social or good behavior, and lower when they were described as exhibiting antisocial or bad, immoral behavior. But we don't know from this work what sort of alternative explanations people might prefer for bad behavior if they don't believe in genetic explanations as much.
And on the flip side, why might we attribute positive behaviors, pro-social behaviors, generosity perhaps, on genetics? Is it like we want to say that they aren't responsible for how good a person they are? What's the flip side of it?
Yeah, so what it looked like from the work that we've done is the main reason seems to be that people see good behavior as more natural. And when something feels or is perceived as natural, people are more ready to believe that it comes from biology. So this sense of naturalness was kind of the strongest predictor of these higher genetic attribution ratings that people assigned to pro-social behavior. So in some of our previous work, we found that people, when they're rating how natural they perceive a behavior to be, they're thinking about things like the behavior is sort of inborn, it doesn't require any special effort, it's sort of typical for what a human being would do. And people think of kindness or generosity or pro-social behavior as being along those lines, something that is just natural. And that sense of naturalness makes them more willing to attribute that behavior to genetic causes, whereas perhaps they see antisocial behavior or unkind behavior as more unnatural, and therefore they're more resistant to the idea that that could be driven by genetics.
Is there a better or more fair framework to see positive behavior and antisocial behavior rather than attributing it to genetics or just learned behavior?
Well, I think all behavior is influenced by multiple factors, and all human behavior is to some extent heritable, or so variations in behavior across human beings are in part attributable to genetic differences between people, and also in part attributable to other influences that are not genetic. So all of our behavior is a combination. The cause of all of our behavior is a combination of genetic and non-genetic influences. And I think what's interesting about our findings is that people don't necessarily look at things that way. That people are inclined to sort of let their beliefs about the causes of a behavior be influenced by their evaluative judgments about the behavior, how good or bad it is, rather than just thinking all behavior is influenced by the same mix of factors to a similar extent.
As genetics research becomes more public and accessible, I'm thinking like the website 23andMe, although maybe that's a bad example because they were having some business trouble. But like I could see a future where we do a DNA test. There's some genetic findings on there about my average behavior based on these findings. Is there a risk of like that information and applying these beliefs unevenly? Would you not recommend websites publish this information or have any suggestions for how people perceive it?
I think whenever people are getting personalized feedback about their own genetic makeup, there's always a risk that people might overinterpret that information. So they might it might influence their self-concept or how they define themselves. And this could be one example of that. In the same way that if someone is told that they have a genetic predisposition to depression, it might lead them to kind of reinterpret their past experiences as being those of a depressed person, or expect their future to be more characterized by depression. In the same way, if they're told, you're genetically predisposed to be a good person or a bad person, it could lead people to reinterpret their past behavior or have different expectations about their future behavior that might not have been in place but for the genetic feedback. So I think there's important reasons to be cautious in providing people with personalized genetic information and give them the full context, and sort of not helping people to understand genetic information in a non-deterministic way so that it doesn't sort of unduly influence people's self-concept or reduce their sense of personal agency over their behavior.
Well, Matt, I've enjoyed this chat. Thanks for sharing your research with me and coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Matthew Lebowitz is an assistant professor at the Department of Psychiatry at Columbia University. That is a wrap on our show. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget about our podcast, The Last Show Podcast. We'd love it if you subscribed. You can find out more details at www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com, never .com, for reasons that elude me. You can also search David Cooper Last Show on your favorite podcast app. Anyway, if you subscribe, you can catch entire episodes of the show, interviews you missed, or check out some of our bonus podcast-only content, stuff you won't hear on the radio show. Anyway, that's me leaving. I'm David Cooper, and this was not, and this also was never, the first show. We'll catch you tomorrow night.
Experience the sequel everyone's been waiting for with Sideline 2 Intercepted. Join Drayton and Dallas as they navigate the challenges of college life while trying to stay true to themselves and each other. Catch all the drama and watch Sideline 2 Intercepted starring Noah Beck and Sienna Agudong for free on Tubi this Thanksgiving.